Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about the location of the wave, which is one of the most important subjects here in the wave principle, because we can only find a leading diagonal in wave 1, for example. We cannot see a triangle in wave 2, but if we see a triangle, we know it's wave 4 or B, and it's going to be the last movement after it, which means it's going to turn away at least 3 movements. So let's remember the basics of wave principle. Corrective wave never returns 100%. That's the more important rule, because if it does, then this is not impulsive, it's corrective. And you already know about the other rules, so let's move forward. Here's a basic map of how the cycles looks like. For example, wave 1 can be a leading diagonal like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then ABC, and then comes wave 3. It always gonna make a new height compared to wave 1. That's your first signal that this is correct. And if it goes like this and didn't make a new height but goes below, that means that this is not impulsive and maybe this was C. It's always important if it makes a new height or a new low. We can find another leading diagonal in wave 1 of subdivisions of wave 3 inside wave 1. So let's remember which one are the wave principle for core patterns. We always need to understand that we can find flat zigzags and triangles only in corrective wave, and ending diagonals along with leading diagonals only in wave 1 or A. That means that the only place that we can find diagonals is in impulsive, in 1, in 3, in 5, in this 3, in this 3, in this 1. We can also find ending diagonals in C, in the end of 2, in this little c, in the end of 5. We can find leading diagonals in A. We can find leading diagonals in 1 if it's a zigzag. We can also find a leading diagonal in this little a. So when you see a leading diagonal, it's at least 2 movements more, like 1, 2, 3. If this is the leading diagonal, it's going to make 1, 2, and 3, at least. But that depends on the locations. For example, if you are right here, and you know that this is already, the bull market is done, and you see a leading diagonal here, like the top of Bitcoin from 2017, when it topped 20K, the first figure that it did was a leading diagonal. So that was the first wave of a big corrective wave that lasted almost a year. Another thing that we need to understand is that, for example, in the wave 2, you cannot find a triangle. That's impossible. If you see a triangle here, that means that the next movement is wave C or wave 5. It cannot be wave 3. Wave 4 usually is complex, and triangles are indecisions, and they happen almost at the end of a trend. So if you see a triangle here, that means that you are on wave B or wave 4, and the next movement is going to end as a wave C or a wave 5, and then it's going to turn around at least 3 movements. If it's C, it's going to turn around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If it's 5, it's going to do the same, at least 3 movements to the downside. That also depends on what happens before this. So you need to understand where you are standing right now so that you can actually spot these things. For example, the first thing that you need to do is identify your impulse. If you get here flat, then you know that it's going to make a new height. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When it stops there, it's going to correct again, A, B, C, not going to get inside of there because it's wave 4. It doesn't get into the zone of 1, so you can put your stop loss there. You use your parallel channel and it should be returning to the top of it, and then you know that this is wave 4. It's going to make a new height compared to 3, and that's your wave 1. So if you see a small ending diagonal here, not a significant size compared to wave 2, because that also matters. The location of the wave has a relationship with the size of the pattern. If the pattern is small, maybe you are in a subdivision and the ending diagonal looks like this, which means it's going to be ABC, and then it's going to make a new height. But if you see a bigger ending diagonal, that means that this is an ending diagonal of a bigger cycle and not a smaller one. The same goes for wave B inside of ABC. That means that this can be a leading diagonal, and this can be another leading diagonal, but then a B and C, making a flat inside a zigzag. It can also be a triangle inside a zigzag, and it can also be just a flat. That's important because B is always corrective. A and C looks impulsive, but they are smaller and shorter than the wave that happened before. So you know that maybe, for example, you can see a small triangle here in wave 4 inside a subdivision of wave 3. It's not the end of the whole pattern. It's just the end of this small sequence. So if you see a triangle here, it's going to return at least 3 movements after the next rise. And you follow your trend. You follow your trend. That's another way that you can understand where you are in the market. If you are below the trend, then you are not in an impulsive sequence, maybe a bigger corrective wave, and you trace another trend line here. And once you break above it, you update your trend line like that, and then you know that you are going to continue. And this could be your 1, and this could be your 2, and then it's going to go up again. So that's basically it about the location of the wave. You need to know where you are in this scenario, and one of the best things to do it is just localizing your ending diagonals at the end of a cycle. A triangle is always important because it tells you immediately where you are in the market. Also, if you see, for example, an ending diagonal followed by a leading diagonal, how do you know it's a leading diagonal? Because it makes an ABC and immediately it made a new high. Then you know that this is the start of something, or at least this is A, and then it's going to go for a C. Another way that you can understand where you are in the market is using Fibonacci. If you use the Fibonacci for wave 1 and you see that you are here, for example, at 31688, that could be the end of the extension of wave 3 or wave 4. Also, if you trace your Fibonacci here and you see that wave B is at 618, then you know this is the end of zigzag. And also, if it doesn't end in diagonal, that you can confirm that this is actually the spot that we want to trade, because the location of the B is confirmed. How is it confirmed? Because you can see multiple things that match. For example, you can trace a trend line here, and if it matches the downside of this trend line and also the 618 or the 786, and you see a small ending diagonal like this after having, for example, a leading diagonal here, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you know that this is gonna be going to the downside, at least making a new low. And if it did 5 movements before, it's going to make 5 movements afterwards, and that is at zigzag. If you see, for example, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and this is like looking like a flat, then you know that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before going up again. So you need to understand where exactly you are in the market by using Fibonacci, by using trend lines, and also watching these important patterns such as ending diagonals, leading diagonals, and triangles, which are the most important in the market that can tell you where you are right now. And that's it for this video. Hopefully you understood what exactly is a location and how the patterns can tell us what is going on and where we are in the market.